I'm very happy to have met with President Michel today to talk about the 6 months ahead of the Swedish priorities to help make Europe greener, safer and freer, the three keywords to summarize our ambitions. And we have a lot to do together these 6 coming months. Just a few words. Before saying anything else, I would like to say this. The Swedish government condemns in the strongest terms Russia's continuing systemic attacks against civilians, civilian objects and critical infrastructure in Ukraine, including Saturday's missile strike on an apartment block in the town of Dnipro. Innocent civilians, including children, lost their lives or were wounded in this horrific attack. So let me be very clear. Intentional attacks against civilians are war crimes. Those responsible for war crimes will be held to account. For as long as it takes, the EU and Sweden will continue our broad support for Ukraine. It is, as everybody knows, very challenging times for Europe and, of course, the worst of times for Ukraine. It is my very strong belief that we are going to need the combined strengths of EU legacy, of the 3 EU institutions and of EU unity to take us through all the problems ahead of us. Making Europe safer is first and foremost about maintaining support for Ukraine, in military as well as in political and economic and humanitarian terms. Staying united, sticking to unity, avoiding divisions between European countries and between European countries and the US is key, not least when Russia wants us to be divided. Ukrainian victory is existential for Europe. Unity is our greatest asset, and during the presidency we will continue to support the European military assistance mission to support Ukraine. So no other single task could be more important for the Swedish presidency than this one. The fate of Ukraine is also the fate of Europe. Our second priority is making Europe greener and focuses, of course, around 2 concrete objectives: to phase out Russian fossil fuels and to scale up the green transition in transport and in industry. Several law files are now in trilogue negotiations, and our aim is to finalize these during the Swedish presidency. This includes reviews of the Renewable Energy Directive and the Energy Efficiency Directive, as well as proposals to phase out CO2 emissions in the maritime transport sector and the development of infrastructure for alternative fuels such as electricity, hydrogen and liquefied methane. Making Europe finally freer is about upholding our global standing and the core values of the single market. The single market actually celebrating its 30-year anniversary this year. One of the presidency's priorities is safeguarding strong European long-term competitiveness and productivity. Focus on tools at European level, internal market, trade, competition rules, and better legislation. But making Europe freer is also about reducing harmful dependencies. That means making our economies more resilient towards external pressure and diversifying the value chains. And I would like to highlight also democracy and the rule of law. Values making Europe an example for the rest of the world. But we can never take it for granted. We will continue to work on the rule of law dialogue in the General Affairs Council, as well as maintaining Article 7 procedures on the agenda. These are, in short, the Swedish priorities for the 6 months ahead that President Michel and I have talked about during today's lunch, and I'm looking forward very much to further cooperation in the upcoming and the following Swedish 6 months of presidency. Please, Charles.
Thank you, dear Prime Minister, dear Ulf.